Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into something really interesting, why even the most brilliant ideas can totally fall flat if they aren't communicated clearly. It's a fascinating story that's all about technology, trust, and the simple but so often overlooked power of translation.
This one idea right here, it's the key to this entire explainer. It suggests that the biggest innovation isn't always the tech itself, but our ability to make people understand it. To really get what this means, we're going to rewind the clock a little bit.
All right, so let's head back to the 19th century. There's a story from that era that has a surprising amount to teach us about the communication headaches we face right now, today.
I mean, can you just imagine the sheer excitement around this thing? For the first time in human history, distance just wasn't a barrier anymore to almost instant communication. It was going to connect the world, speed up business. It was going to change everything.
But here's where progress just slammed into a wall. You had businesses and government pouring tons of money into this. But for the public, these messages were just, well, they were incomprehensible static. So adoption totally stalled because the innovation was delivered in a language that basically no one spoke.
And this is just such a brilliant point. The real breakthrough wasn't more tech, it was a human touch. Once these trained clerks started translating the dots and dashes into plain, readable language, everything changed. Suddenly, there was trust, commerce took off, and the telegraph finally lived up to its promise.
Okay, I know this might feel like a bit of a leap, right? A 19th century machine and modern benefits. But the connection between those confusing dots and dashes and the way we often talk about workplace benefits today, well, it's incredibly direct and really, really relevant.
So let's jump to the present day and see how this exact same problem, this failure of translation, is playing out right now in companies all over the place.
Okay, let's look at a modern example, the individual coverage ICHRA, or ICHRA. On paper, it's a fantastic idea. It gives employees money from their employer to go out and choose their own health insurance plan. It's all about flexibility. It's all about personal choice. Sounds great, right?
But here's the catch. The benefit gets rolled out using all this regulatory jargon. Terms like affordability thresholds and substantiation requirements. And while that's all technically accurate, to an employee, it sounds exactly like that old Morse code. Confusing, intimidating, and in the end, just noise.
The parallel here is it's striking. You've got the telegraph's challenge on one side and the modern benefit story on the other. The code changed from Morse to jargon, but the audience is the same, totally confused. It is the exact same problem, a powerful tool that's just not effective because of a failure to translate.
So, okay, if jargon is the problem, what's the solution? How do we become those modern-day translators for our teams? Well, the source material actually proposes a simple but really powerful framework to do just that. Before we even get to the solution, it's so important to understand what employees are actually asking. They're not worried about the legal statutes. Their questions are much simpler, much more direct and practical. They just want clarity, not all this complexity.
And here it is, the Clear Channel Framework. Think of it like a 5-step playbook for making things crystal clear. First, get rid of the acronyms. Seriously, if it needs an explanation, it needs a rewrite. Second, lead with the good stuff. Focus on what they get, like choice and control, not all the rules. Third, show the journey with visuals, like screenshots, instead of these huge walls of text. Fourth, and this is a big one, emphasize that a real, live human is there to help them. And finally, keep reinforcing the message with simple, short reminders. It's all about turning that confusion into confidence.
So this framework, it all builds to what is arguably the most important insight of all. It's about completely reframing how we look at the problem itself.
So here's the crucial point. The resistance, it isn't actually about the benefit. Employees aren't rejecting the idea of choice, they're rejecting the feeling of being confused. The real fear is being handed something complicated and being told, hey, good luck, you're on your own. But when employers step up and take on that translator role, everything changes. They start to build trust, they slash that anxiety, and they reframe the whole benefit into a simple, powerful promise. And when they do that, you know what they see? Higher adoption, more satisfaction, and a much, much stronger trust in their HR teams. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. This lesson, that technology fails when we ignore translation. It applies way beyond just one type of health benefit. So it's worth asking yourself, in your world, what important messages might be getting lost in all the static? And how can you be the translator that turns all that noise into a clear, simple signal?